Hello and welcome to Analytic Loop. This channel is all about helping you understand data analytics in a simple and practical way. Here, we focus on how to measure, monitor, model, and master your data so you can turn your numbers into meaningful decisions. As you watch this session, I would like you to relax, learn, and follow along. So our next topic is cell references. Going through our overview last week, that is the Excel overview that we did, we I explained more on the cell reference when we talk about the column, the row, and the cell. If you look at my screen right now, you can see as I'm highlighting on the cell presently, the column is already highlighted. It's telling me that I'm in column G and presently column G row 7, because if you can see this presently, you can see that the G is highlighted on the top, and the 7, that is row 7, is also highlighted. So presently I'm in cell G7. So let me see, give the same example I gave us last week. So let me give this particular cell a number. Let's say I put in 5. Then I come here, I want to column, or I want this 5 to return back to me, and I'm very sure that it is in this cell. So I can just say equals to G7. That is, G is the column while 7 is the row. So equals to G7. Then I click on enter. You can see it returned back this number back to me. So that is just we being able to reference our cell. That is, we calling on a particular cell, that what is in this particular cell, return it back to me. So that is exactly what cell is all about and what cells reference is all about. You being able to reference your cell, that is calling on the particular cell you want it to come up. And majorly when we're teaching or we're trying to learn cell reference, we need to understand the different types of cell references we have. So we have the relative reference, relative, relative reference, and we have the absolute reference, and we have the mixed reference. So we have the relative reference, we have the absolute, and we have the mix. So if I say equals to, like what we did for this numbering of, like equals to G7, let me bring it back here again. This is just an example of a relative reference. You just calling on the cell name. That is absolute reference. But when we come to absolute reference, it's more of we locking up a cell because we don't want it to change. Because we want both the column and the row. Like I said, G7, G is the column, 7 is the row. So now we want to lock up both column G and column 7 so that it doesn't change. It is absolutely fixed. I can't change it at all. So that is the major thing about absolute. We want to lock both the column and the row at the same time. And what we use mostly to do that is using the dollar sign. This dollar sign. This is what it is used to lock up a cell. But on your system, we have a shortcode of using, you just clicking on F4 and it's going to lock the cell for us. So using the same cell where we have 5, so I'll say equals to, then I'll call on G7 again. G7. Yes. This is the normal name for the cell. This is what we have on that cell. G7, we have 5 there. But I don't want this 5 to change. That is, as I'm dragging, it will still remain at that 5. I don't want it to change at all. Then it means I need to lock both the column and the row at the same time. And that is why I will have to use the F4 shortcut to do that. So I'll just come up, I'll click on the cell, then I'll just click on F4. And this, now you can see we have the dollar sign before the G and the dollar sign before the 7. So it means the first dollar sign for G is locking the column, while the dollar sign for 7 is locking the row. So if you want to make it fixed, you don't want it to change, you want both the column and the row to be locked, then it means you have to use the $2 sign. That is the first one to lock the column and the second one to lock the row. So that is majorly what absolute reference is. Why for mixed reference? Mixed reference is all about you. We have in mixed reference, we have escape. I don't know, sorry, I have to write this again. G7, G7, then we look it up. If, yes, so this is for absolute reference. So we are going to mixed reference. So for mixed reference, we have two types under mixed reference. We have the absolute column and we have the absolute row. So there is absolute column and there is absolute row when we're trying to work on mixed. So for mixed we have absolute column and we have the absolute row. So these are the two types we have for mixed reference. And when we're trying to, so it means now what we are trying to say when it comes to absolute column is that you are fixing only the column, but the row can change. So now, as I'm dragging, definitely everything is going to, as I'm dragging, it changes the row. So let me give example of absolute reference. So let me come here. So for absolute column now, absolute column. Now, so let me give, we have one, we have two, we have three, we have four. And I only want to lock the column. I only want to lock the column, but the row can change as I'm dragging. It can change. So I'll say equals to. So then I'll click on this now. But I only want to lock the column, but the row can change. So this is the column, but the row can change. So for me to lock this now, I have to bring the dollar sign to this beginning part, that is just the C. But as I'm dragging from C3, it will change to C4, it will change to C5, it will change to C6, like I said. So now I've clicked on column C. So I only want to lock the column, but the row can change. Like you can see here now, we are in this C3 now. The C is the column and the 3 is the row. And I only want to lock the column, which is C. I want to keep the 3. I want the 3 to still change anytime I need it. So I'll click on this place and I'll put in the dollar sign also. So the dollar sign, that is just for that beginning part, which is the column. So now the dollar sign only comes before the C. So it means I'm only locking the column, which is the C. The 3, which is the row, is still there. And I click on enter. It will turn back 1 for me, which is for the. So let's drag a little and see. You can see it will turn back the other for me, that is for column C4, because I only lock the column, but the rows can still move. So if I drag again now, it will bring me what we have in the next row. It will still bring what we have in the next row for me. So that is just a perfect example of absolute column under mixed reference. So it is more of you locking the column, but the row can still move the way you like it. Now we now have the absolute row. So let's use this place as an example. Absolute row. So this is it. Now I don't want the row to change. As I'm dragging, I want my column to change, but my row should still remain the way it is. I don't want it to change at all. That is, I only want to lock the row, but the column I want to make use of can move, but the row should be fixed. So let's give this row now, this cell presently now, let's put in 6 there. And we want to lock it. That is, I want to use this number we have here. I want to use it to times this. Now, I'll definitely, if I'm using absolute row now, I will have to fix this row not to change. That is, this 6 now, it must not change. So as I'm dragging, it's going to times this 6 by this 1. This 6 will still times by this 2. So it will be fixed that it's only 6 that can times this 1, 2, 3 for me. So I'll say equals to then I'll click on this cell now. But now if I should lock now, I'm not locking this 6, this C, I'm locking the 12 because the 12 is telling me that I am in row cell I'm in column C, row 12. So that is what it means. That is C12 now is trying to tell me that the C is the column while the 12 is the row. So that is the highlight. So I've called on cell C12. That is what it means. But on this C12 now, I want to only lock the row. The column can still remain. And let's not forget, the column is the C, while the row is the 12. Now, it is the 12 I want to lock. It's just for me to put a dollar sign before the 12 for it to know that, yes, I'm locking the row. So I would put my dollar sign here. So these have shown that yes, I'm only locking that row, but the column still remain the same. So I've locked this row now. Then I'll click on times. Then I'll click on this one because I want to times the row times this. Then I'll click on enter. You can see 6 times 1 is it returned back 6. So let's drag down and see. You can see. So what this is trying to say now that even when I wanted to times these two, it is still by that 6. So it is now it's still that same 6. It's not changing at all. So that is just a perfect example of absolute row and absolute column. So you can see here it gave me 0. And the reason it gave me 0 here is because I don't have any other number here. We only have 4 rows. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. So because I dragged down, there is no any number here. That is why there is a 0. But we can clean that up. So it means that it was only this 6 I used to times this one. It was this 6 I used to times the 2. It was 6 I used to times the 3. And it was this 6 that gave us all this number. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. And 6 times 4 is 24. So this is a perfect example of when it is a perfect example or explanation for cell references. Like I said, we have the relative reference, we have the absolute reference, and we have the mixed reference. And under mixed reference, we have the absolute column and the absolute row. The absolute column is you just a dollar sign to just lock up the column, just the column while the row still remain. So as you drag, it changes. That is the row changes, but the column still remain intact. While for the absolute row, the column is still there, the columns can change, but the row is fixed. So that is majorly what it means. That is a perfect example of this cell reference where we have the 3, and under the 3 the mix has 2 types. So we should always know when best to use these cell references. So I'll be using the VLOOKUP because after this we'll be going through our lookup functions. And for the lookup functions, that is where we have the VLOOKUP and the XLOOKUP we'll be working on. So I'll also use the VLOOKUP and the XLOOKUP to still teach us more on the cell references so that we can easily understand how to use them and why they are very, very necessary to use them. Thank you for watching. If you found this session helpful, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who want to learn data analytics. See you in the next class.